This is the only novel I ever finished under the mistaken belief I was writing not this kind of novel, but another. Living in Provincetown on the edge of those rare, towering and windy dunes which give the tip of Cape Cod a fair resemblance to the desert of the Sahara, I had begun to think of a novel so odd and so horrible that I hesitated for years to begin it. I did not like the story. It came to me with fear. I imagined a group of 7 or 8 bikers, hippies and studs, plus a girl or two, living in the scrub thickets which sat in some of the valleys between the dunes. Only 6 feet high, those thickets were nonetheless forests, and if one could find a path through the thorns and catbriers, nobody could track you, not in a hurry. So I peopled the thickets with characters. My characters were as wild as anyone who ever came to Provincetown. It is not a tame place. Years ago, a first lady was once told it was the Wild West of the East, and that is not a bad description. The tip of Cape Cod curls in on itself in a spiral. The long line of the dunes comes around like the curve of one's palm and fingers as they close into a fist. It is one of the very few places in America where one comes to the end of the road for a more profound reason than real estate ceasing to be profitable. In Provincetown, geography runs out, and you are surrounded by the sea. So it is a strange place. The Pilgrims landed there before they went on to Plymouth. America began here. The Pilgrims lost interest in scrub pine, mournful winds, and sand in the land. They moved on, left ghosts. Whaling captains settled in later, left ghosts. In winter the town is filled with spirits. One can go mad in that rainy climate, waiting for March to end. It is a place for murderers and suicides. If decades went by without a single recorded homicide, that record ended abruptly with a crime of true carnage. A few years ago, a young Portuguese from a family of fishermen killed 4 girls, dismembered their bodies and buried the pieces in 20 small and scattered graves. That catastrophe was not a good deal worse than anything I had already contemplated for my gang, since I conceived of them making nocturnal trips from the dunes into town, where out of the sheer boredom of an existence not nearly intense enough to satisfy their health, they would commit murders of massive brutality, and then slip back to the dunes. Motiveless crimes. I saw a string of such crimes. I was, as I say, in fear of the book. I loved Provincetown, and did not think that was a good way to write about it. The town is so naturally spooky in midwinter, and provides such a sense of omens waiting to be magnetized into lines of force, that the novel in my mind seemed more a magical object than a fiction. A black magic. Nonetheless, I began the book in the spring of '66. It attracted me too much not to begin. Yet because I could not thrust Provincetown into such literary horrors without preparation, I thought I would start with a chapter about hunting bear in Alaska, a prelude. I would have 2 tough rich boys, each as separated from social convention as any 2 rich boys could be. Texans. I would make them out of a reserve of memories of Texans I had served with in the 112th Cavalry out of San Antonio. The boys would be still young, still mean rather than uncontrollably murderous. The hunting might serve as a bridge to get them ready for more. They would come back from the Alaskan hunting trip ready to travel. Provincetown would eventually receive them. Now, anyone who reads the book which follows this preface will see that nobody ever gets to Provincetown. The chapter on hunting becomes a half-dozen chapters, a dozen chapters. It ends up being all of the book. If I wrote those chapters wondering how long it would take to extricate myself with novelistic integrity from all the elaborations of the hunt I seemed more and more bound to get into, it was not until those boys were back in Dallas and I was getting ready to move them east that I realized 2 things. 1, I had nothing further to say about them. 2, even if I did, I could no longer believe that Tex and DJ could still be characters in the Provincetown novel. They had another quality by now. So I lived with my manuscript for a few months and ended by recognizing that I hadn't been too bright. I had written a novel, not a prelude. The book was done.